like if you're posting your work every single day versus just posting it once a week or two, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Eventually, if you just buy enough, you're gonna win some of them, and like you're gonna get lucky some of the times, but it doesn't cost you anything to post. So I know people are like, yeah, I only post like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and like I guess that can work for some people if you already have like brand recognition and a name. But if you're just out there, like you're missing so many chances to post content. And I took like the Paramez logo, which is actually pretty complicated, and like a complex logo, and just put it into the cookie. And it's really that simple. Like I'm using like radial symmetry and stuff to create these like little indentations. Obviously, people start to think it's like, okay, oh, we got this food thing we need. It's like, who's the first thing they're going to think of? It's the guy who's posting food content every single day. Versus, you know, if there's maybe like a handful and one of them posts like once a month, it's like, it's just ingraining in people's heads, you know? So just consistent posting. I think long-term for me, I want to eventually take that, because eventually I feel like I'll plateau as like a singular artist. So, you know, I have plans in the future to maybe open up like a studio or something like that.
So yeah, okay. Because yeah, it's the first time for me as well on MDC. So yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Yeah, personally, I discovered like your work like just a few months ago, like with your cartoon characters. I found it like really inspiring, really cool, really high details, and I don't know, like I really loved your styles, and this is how I discovered you. And yeah, like I said, just this is the first time, I guess, for you on MDC channel, right? I think we repost your work on Instagram, but on YouTube.
Yeah, I think you guys actually have one or two tutorials of mine or something like that from way back in the day, like abstract stuff back when I was only doing abstract. But yeah, it's been a minute, I think.
For a few people who don't know your work, because I don't know if you've done like a lot of interview about your work on YouTube, but for people who don't know you, like, could you introduce yourself, like what you're doing, who you are?
Yeah. So my name is Patrick Foley. On social media I go by Patrick4D, and I'm actually from originally Chicago for like high school and everything before that, and then I came to Atlanta, Georgia for school, actually film school, and that's where, this is before 3D, before anything I got into. And so before that, film was my life, and I was doing a ton of like music videos, commercial stuff, on more of the directing and mostly director of photography side. So like wielding the camera, lighting the sets, doing all that stuff, coming up with like the shot composition. And midway through college, I got into 3D just because one of the editing bays at school had Cinema 4D, and just started messing with it, looking up like little tutorials on YouTube, and pretty much from day one started an Instagram where I was posting like abstract work. And that's when I was like, oh wow, I'm literally doing the same stuff as I am on like film sets, but it's much less of like an intensive task, because I don't have to hire people to carry these heavy lights, rent out expensive equipment, have all this liability on set. So I was like, I can just do all this stuff here, and I know that like, you know, the lighting techniques, camera settings. So I kind of came with an edge. And then by the time I graduated, I was doing so much of both that I was getting a little bit of 3D work and then a little bit of film work as well. So from right off the bat, I didn't have to get like a 9-to-5 or a job or anything. I was kind of doing a little bit of film work and 3D work. And at some point, maybe a year after college, I was like, I'm getting a lot more 3D work, and it's higher paying and much less physically demanding work, so I can't really complain. So I quit the film stuff, and now we've just been doing full-fledged 3D work.
And your main clients are from like commissions, or is like you are more as an artist?
Yeah, it's all over the place. It started like so gradually. Like obviously when I was doing a lot of like the film work, I think the first few like clients were like artists and musicians, like, ooh, can you make me like an abstract album cover or something like that? So that was kind of like fun. I was like, ooh, I'm getting paid to make this like fun abstract stuff. And then eventually it came down to, you know, maybe a year into it, I started getting some actual like maybe some small agency work where like people hit me up, ooh, we like your style, could you like recreate our product in like a cool environment? And that's the kind of stuff I was doing. And at the time, I really didn't know how to do any like sculpting or any like crazy modeling. So I could do stuff. That's why I started like with abstract, and then kind of like simple product stuff, like, you know, make a cylinder, which is like a cream jar or something like that. And it was so gradual. Got the lighting and texturing down first, And so that's why companies would hit me up. They're like, ooh, this stuff looks super realistic. And then it came, there's really no like, because people ask all the time, like, what kind of work do you do all the time? And it's all over the place. And it kind of depended on the series I was doing in like on Instagram and stuff. So when I was doing character work, maybe like a year ago, like that, like really botched, really funky looking characters, I was getting like a bunch of NFT related artwork, commission stuff. And more so not because I was necessarily part of the projects, but more so as just like commission. Like they wanted like look development for a character that they might bump out. And I was like, all right, I'll treat it as a commission, because I was never big on like accepting crypto or anything like that. And then I started doing a bunch of food stuff, starting with a cartoon food series where I was like taking cartoon elements like the Krabby Patty or like stuff from our childhood favorite cartoons and bringing back those kind of foods that we thought all looked really tasty, but realistically. And when I did that, I was like, I could probably just do like actual foods now. And I switched that series to making foods. And then I started getting reached out for like food projects. So it really just depends on the series I'm on, like in social media. And that's how I get work.
Why you've decided to do food? Like it was not just a personal challenge, or you've seen something in there, like maybe an industry you wanted to target? Like why did you choose this industry?
Yeah, a little bit. There's a bunch of things. One, I had a lot of fun. Like the process of creating food to me is like really fun. Like you can kind of, even if you're trying to recreate a food that exists already, it's like, I think you have more creative control than some other aspects. Like if you're creating a jar for like a product, it's like you got to be pretty strict. It's like, here's exactly what it looks like. Here's what the label looks like. Creating food, you know, let's say you're creating like an ice cream cone. It's like you have that freedom of like, oh, the sprinkles go this way, or like you can randomize them this way, and you can like create certain like divots in the ice cream. So there's certain parts of that where it's like there's like a beauty in the randomness there. And so that's kind of why I like that. And also, you know, it seems that a lot of artists struggle with the texturing and the modeling and stuff of making food look appetizing and having it really come together. Not only look tasty, but it looked like commercial ready. So I found that I was pretty decent in that niche. And so I was like, makes sense. And I can bump these out pretty fast, at least for the dailies. I think I already have one made for today. I just have to post it. And you know,
yeah, because remind us what time is it there?
It's 9 a.m.
Yeah, and you've done your daily render already, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So I was actually just on Discord before this, just talking with the guys, and so I started it actually last night because I had a little bit of time. But every morning I'll wake up at like between 6 and 7 a.m. Sometimes earlier, and then get coffee, get the cold brew up here, get the buds, and then hop on Discord and make the stream, and then it'll be about an hour and a half usually for the streams, and then post the render. So it's like it's been such a crazy like routine that I'm pretty fast at it at this point. It's still fun.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about this routine. Like, do you have like a creative process? Like, do you have like steps or is just now pretty natural because you've done it for many months? But at the beginning, did you have like a process you tried to follow? And right now, could you describe how it looks like between like ideas and productions?
Yeah, totally. So I have, as far as like the overall like grand scheme of the process, it literally starts with me waking up, immediately, obviously getting ready, going down, getting a coffee, coming up, because since I work from home, I like actually leaving my place and not actually making my own coffee. So when I come back up and I got a little bit of a coffee buzz, it's like I'm entering the workplace. So I get in the mindset much easier. And so I know a lot of people that love making their coffee at home, but they commute. So it's like, makes sense. I like having that. My commute is I go downstairs and I like come back up and I'm in the office and then immediately hop on Discord without knowing anything about what I'm going to create. So all I know is, okay, general food, whatever. I hop on there and I stream, you know, my screen. I'm talking to the guys, and I'll just be looking at different brands, and it depends on the series. I'll be like, all right, what's like a designer brand? Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Hermes. And then I'm like, how can I turn this into like some kind of delicious, delectable? And it's really, I mean, there's no like process other than trying to combine two things or just make something. And at this point, I got to a point where I can be like, okay, here's the food, here's the food. There was a point where I was like, I don't know where I would start making that. Like, I don't know how you get these divots or whatever. And now it's just, you get so fluent with these programs that it's like anything you see, it's like, okay, yeah, you just do that. Or it's like second nature at this point. Not really, actually. It's really, I mean, the closest thing would be like PureRef and just like grabbing references. Like, I'll just grab like 1 to 3 references. I'll grab like an Oreo, boom, a designer brand logo, boom, and just somehow find it and mix it. But yeah, so I took this. This was like kind of last night's little sketch thing. And this is clearly like an Oreo or Hermes inspired Oreo. Where I took like the Hermes logo, which is actually pretty complicated and like a complex logo, and just put it into the cookie. And it's really that simple. Like, I'm using like radial symmetry and stuff to create these like little indentations, obviously. And then, you know, once I have like the actual baked in object, I can like inflate certain parts and like make things, maybe take the contrast down or depending on how like much I want these things to pop out. And then, yeah, it just all becomes with dragging a few references here and starting like that. And they're actually pretty simple when it comes down to it. It's like 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, and just like 4 little like subtools is what ZBrush calls it. And then it's pretty much ready to go into Cinema and light and texture. Yeah, I think at this point, like Houdini maybe in the future, but that I think I've definitely found like my own lane, my own niche and stuff. And one thing about me is, and most people are super surprised even coming from the film industry, is like I have not that much motivation or interest level in wanting to animate these things. I like making like a polished still frame, just having to work on one really nice kind of frame. And yeah, after that, it's kind of just like, I like shipping it off. Like if a client needs it to be animated, I usually ship it off to an agency or something like that. This was the, I don't know if you can see this, but this was the, I was kind of playing around with background colors here, but this was kind of like that cookie kind of bumped out and just, again, like real commercial ready stuff. This could be like in the front of a package or something. And I like to keep it simple. Typically keep like a simple background, simple color, solid, and then just having the subject speak for itself. So I used to do a lot of like environment stuff, but nowadays focusing on the subject. And then when I post my logo, I kind of try to make it resemble the thing that I'm making. So Oreo logo, Patrick 4D, make it look a little bit more towards the brand, instead of having a logo that I just keep every single time, like I feel like most people do. But yeah, they're fun, you know. This is like this tape ball that all these days that I'm working on this stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, I think that there's a misconception that like the reels, it does obviously take more time than just posting the still frame. But at this point, I mean, the reels between finding the song and editing the video and doing all that probably only takes me like 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes max. So it's just like a little extra piece of the process. And I used to take, you know, it's like, you never know how much should I like film myself doing like 80 things because there's so many pieces of the process. But I think I'm pretty good at this point of just picking out, all right, I only need 5 shots. Like one of me dragging out the primitive, one of me like dragging out the logo, inflating it, maybe 2 shots of the milk, and then I'm pretty much good. People get the idea. No, so I kind of prep it while I'm making it in ZBrush. So when in ZBrush you have these things called subtools, which is like an object or something in a regular software. And, you know, I'll make the primitive, duplicate it, start working on that. And when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I probably want to show this part, duplicate it again. So I have all these, like this hierarchy of different stages of the design. And so when I come back, after I've finished and made the final product, I'll go back to ZBrush and just go to that one place, sculpt a little bit, make it look like I'm making it. So I'm revisiting the thing instead of like in the middle of the stream, like filming myself doing it. Yeah, I prep a little bit for it. So I kind of finesse it afterwards.
What would you do?
I think really just the easiest thing you can do is just make a social media, whether that's Instagram or TikTok nowadays too is huge. and immediately, even if you're not like, you know, a professional or someone who like knows everything about the software yet, posting content, because that's, I mean, like I mentioned in I was on the Phograph.com podcast like last week, and it was I talked about the like if you're posting your work every single day versus just posting it once a week or two, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Eventually, if you just buy enough, you're gonna win some of them, and like you're gonna get lucky some of the times, but it doesn't cost you anything to post. So I know people are like, yeah, I only post like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and like I guess that can work for some people if you already have like brand recognition and a name. But if you're just out there, like you're missing so many chances to post content, and especially when people on TikTok nowadays are posting sometimes like upwards of like 10 times a day, which I think is excessive. But yeah, just knowing that there are creators out there who are just absolutely posting all the time. So it's easy to get to fall behind if you're only posting once or twice a week. But there's also ways to finesse it. Like you could take one finished design, because it's one thing, you know, it's inevitable to say that it's hard for you to make like 10 3D designs in a day and post. That sounds unobtainable. But if you were to make one really complex render that has a bunch of different types of things going on in the frame, it's like you can cut that up and optimize it. So you're like, you know, posting one crop of the frame, 2 crops of the frame, and have a bunch of pieces of content to post. So it doesn't have to be you're making like 8 complex renders excluding client work every single day or every week or whatever. So there's ways to finesse it and optimize it.
Yeah, and I was wondering also, like, how do you find clients? Is it mainly through Instagram? And at the beginning of your career, like, how did you manage to get clients? Right now is mainly through Instagram, right? So how did you like made it before, like in the past? And also, if you have any recommendation for those designers who are starting in the industry, like, what could you recommend?
I think really any real opportunities I had as far as clientele work somehow originated through social media and really Instagram. Obviously these days, I'll get emailed from, you know, an agency, and I'll start at a kickoff meeting, and usually it's just like, oh, we've been following your work for a while, like blah blah. It's like, it's dope to work with you. Like we've been seeing the food stuff, so like there's a lot of brand recognition at this point. And I think I was in a very lucky position to never have to, like, I've never pitched to a client. Like I'd never have had to like pitch to a client or like share like a deck or like make something, and like it's always like the client reaching out because of like somebody saw me, whether it was like the creative director of an agency, somebody follows me who pitched my name for a project. And so that's the part where I got really lucky. But originally it's just, again, staying consistent, and it all goes back to the social media thing. When you're posting so consistently, it's like people start to think it's like, okay, oh, we got this food thing we need. It's like, who's the first thing they're going to think of? It's the guy who's posting food content every single day. Versus, you know, if there's maybe like a handful and one of them posts like once a month, it's like, it just ingraining in people's heads, you know? So just consistent posting without getting yourself burned out, like stay relevant, change up the series every once in a while. That's why I've been able to stick with food for a while at this point. But, you know, I'm changing the series from like combining brands. All right, let's make this designer brand a snack. There's so many different ways to go about creating stuff, and it's just fun. So that's eventually get better just every single day, just doing that much more. And did I answer that question? I think it was like, yeah, just social media. The more I post, the more people, brand recognition, people reach out to me. And that's been my realm. I mean, maybe with the algorithms these days, it's a little bit tougher. But I don't think you can go wrong just constantly projecting your work, especially since it's free.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think that's gonna help a lot of people. So yeah, just keep being persistent, keep creating, keep improving your craft, and yeah, like expose yourself online. This is the main advice here. And I would be curious as well to have like your opinion about like new technology, because our industry is evolving like so much. Like there's new tools every day, new AI tools starting slowly to come up. Like and I don't know if you have like any thought about it. I mean, like those tools, like for example, like there's Point.E, a tool which can create like point cloud of an object, and for now it's not really usable, you know. It's like I've tried myself and it's not really ready yet. but let's see in the future how everything is evolving. And I'm really curious about your opinion about this subject. Like, do you think incorporating into your workflow, do you think it's bad for the industry? How do you see everything evolving? I don't know, like, if you have opinion on it.
Yeah, I think immediately everyone, obviously, if you're an artist at any capacity, let alone just other industries, it seems very threatening. And I definitely had the initial opinion of like, damn, like this is kind of crazy that someone can just type in like Patrick 4D inspired burger 3D, and it's just like this thing will spit out something that's like, wow, maybe it would have took me like a few hours to make or something. But yeah, I think obviously I don't know where the technology is really going to go and where society ends up using everything. But I talked to a bunch of people about this, and one instance I can see is obviously people say using it as a tool, and I can see something where like you get client work and they want you to, reimagine their product in a new way. I can see as a 3D artist using that in a sense where it's like, it bumps out a bunch of different look development options for you. And then you pick, maybe a couple and you're like, show it to the client. They're like, ooh, this one, maybe go this route. And then you build that from ground up in 3D. And so it becomes more of like a look development tool, which I think the people who should really be scared is like people going to school for look development. That stuff, I'd be very scared. And but again, that can be used. I don't think those people necessarily have to like quit their careers. They need to maybe adapt and learn how to use AI into their setting, maybe helping them craft up look development renders or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And also it's about the storytelling. It could be about that as well. It's about all of the details and all of our background as well, the culture, the way we perceive things as well. And this is like, for me, like just a tool, even if like it's becoming like a more and more efficient. Right now, like for pictures, it's pretty interesting, but for animation, it's not there yet. For sure, one day it will be. But let's use it as in our advantages and trying to like output way more and being even more creative, and that way we're gonna differentiate ourselves as well from like maybe companies who've got like I don't know, maybe just smaller budgets. And let's use it as a tool to be even better and more creative. And our industry will shift slightly, I think, and maybe more focus into storytelling. And this is, I think, something that will be hard to replace, even if this is possible, for sure, with ChatGPT and stuff. But I think designer will just evolve like every revolutions, So let's see how it goes.
I think actually. Yeah, I think there's part of me that thinks it's actually going to be good for the industry because it might weed out the kinds of clients that just want to pay, a couple $100 for something like really grand. So, and not have that flexibility of like those kinds of revisions. So any real, I think, serious client with like an actual budget, I think we'll still want to rely on an artist to make those kind of changes and actually have, a brain behind the artwork. So I think in a way it could be good. I mean, like, that's why a lot of people on like Fiverr kind of get bought out for like $50 for like something that should really be costing like hundreds of dollars, if not thousands. And I've heard of some horror stories on Fiverr. I know some people make decent money on Fiverr because it pays the bills and stuff, but I've heard of some stories where it's like it's really bad for fellow artists when people are doing work that should cost thousands of dollars for like $50, $100, $150. Like, so I think those are the kind of clients who are taking advantage of those kinds of services. Will take advantage of AI.
Yeah, and also it's not only about the technical part. You need as well to learn how to market yourself, how to talk to clients. It's not only one job, like the technical job. This thing will may disappear, but it's the whole package. It's like it's all about, I think, a process and expertise. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's like really interesting to have your thought on it. And and are you using it sometimes? Are you exploring AI, ChatGPT or stuff like that? So like personally, every day I'm trying to play a bit with ChatGPT, see what's possible. even with Houdini, sometimes you can explore having some Vex code, and this is interesting, you know. And I'm wondering if you use it sometimes.
I think a few months ago, I tried for like a day or two. I was like, oh, this is kind of crazy. I was messing with Midjourney for a second, not in any like work setting or anything, but more just like, damn, this thing can like spit out something that I can type. But I actually haven't used it in any kind of workflow setting or anything like that. I don't know if it's just the opportunity didn't come up, or it's not that I'm necessarily like, I'm never going to use that, but I have not had a scenario where I'm like, I need to take advantage of this. I use AI all the time as far as like, AI masking tools to help, stuff in Photoshop, Camera Raw, but not to the point where I'm just like typing something in and bumping out like a straight up image. So we'll see though. Who knows?
Yeah, and also like I saw your picture on Photoshop. So are you compositing in Photoshop or on After Effects? But I guess Photoshop, right? Because you do mainly style frames. So
yeah. So pretty much everything right now with like all the food stuff, I'm pretty much exporting everything as like an alpha. I don't go too deep into like the render passes, and I like bumping one frame out, one like layer into Photoshop, maybe like a cast shadow layer, and then changing the background on there, because all it really has to be is like a simple 2D background, and then I compress it all into a smart object and then edit that thing like I would edit a photo back in the day, and that's where I add like film grain and stuff and make it look even more photorealistic and less CG. So that's the workflow I like. I like making like a polished still image, and there's a lot of stuff in that workflow that you can't really do in animation, or at least it would be much harder. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Cinema or ZBrush to Cinema and Octane, export alpha to Photoshop, deposit in Photoshop, color it, add a LUT, and yeah, the LUTs that I have built up in Camera Raw are crazy. Like, I think I have like over 1,000 probably just from different renders. I'll save each LUT from every render I make, and I'll start with a preset. And at that point, it's just like a massive library of shit.
So you've created preset, right, in Photoshop? Because this was kind of my next question. What is your secret sauce? Is it in like having 8K texture? Is it using LUT, exporting EXR, or like what's your kind of?
Yeah, it's pretty. And maybe it's just because I'm so used to it, but it's very. There's not like a crazy secret sauce necessarily. I mean, maybe in the texturing level, or like how I post process in Camera Raw. But I use pretty much the same HDRI. From one of my packs on my website, and that's kind of a base. It gives like nice like rim lights and stuff, and then I'll add like an area light or two to the renders. Texturing is kind of the same way. I save a bunch of these like cookie textures, any kind of food that's like, oh, I haven't really made this texture, I'll save it as a preset in the asset browser and use that maybe as a starting point for something else. And then I'll bring it in there and then just pick a LUT that I've made from a past render, finesse it a little bit, so I was like, okay, perfect, and then resave that LUT as a new LUT, and that's where that kind of comes down. I would say like at the beginning of my 3D career was like Beeple, Hoodass, Ron Rendered, and his name's Blues 4D. Again, they don't do anything near food type renders, but they were the guys that got me into 3D, I feel like, from their inspiration. And by the time I got into the food stuff, there was no one that I was like necessarily looking up to who I was like, ooh, this is a food 3D artist. It was just something I stumbled upon as like a very gradual process of my series. And yeah, at this point, like if anything, when I'm looking for inspiration for like a next post, I'm going to my Instagram and looking at past food renders, because I feel like there's not a lot of 3D artists that are doing like food every day. At this point, I'm going to my literal Instagram to go down. I'm like, okay, I did that style. Boom. Maybe we could do this. I liked how that turned out, which is good, I think, for one, not having the imposter syndrome and kind of keeping yourself motivated and stuff. So yeah, no one really in the food game that I've really looked up to at this point.
Yeah, you are your own inspiration. This is the best thing.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
No, exactly. Yeah, this is amazing. And yeah, maybe you consume like I don't know, on Behance, maybe a food photography for references, or not necessarily. It's like just.
Dude, not even it. My references, and I know people that are so deep into like Pinterest, Behance, ArtStation, all that stuff, that they compile massive PureRef sheets for each render they do. I'm literally Google image popular snacks, take one photo, boom, that's it, nothing else. And I keep it simple. I don't even have like a bunch of angles of stuff. I'm just like pick one angle and then kind of do a bunch of guesswork and have it come out. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's perfect. Like, yeah, like it's cool. Like, it seems like you have your own road. Like, you're really productive. You know what you want, what you get, and yeah, I'm curious about that as well. Like, what's your goal? I mean, is it creating for the art? Is it to just keep the momentum and keep growing on social, to keep getting more clients, getting bigger commissions? Like, I think it's a mix of everything, right? Like getting maybe more clients, and if you love your series, like keep creating for the. But where everything is going, like, what's your big goal, if there is any?
Yeah, I think at this point, I've been riding this huge like snowball or tidal wave since really when I started 3D, and it doesn't feel like a different necessarily. Like, it doesn't feel like a different journey from now between like 5 years ago, really, when I was doing, projects for like a couple $100 or something. It's really just the workflow has changed from, maybe doing like a bunch of random small projects here and there to like, at this point, I'm really only doing like maybe one, maybe two projects a month. But they're like bigger scale, longer term and stuff. So I think long term for me, I want to eventually take that, because eventually I feel like I'll plateau as like a singular artist. So, I have plans in the future to maybe open up like a studio or something like that. And I feel like it makes perfect sense because of like the community that I've built, not only on Instagram, but like on Discord, and just having so many people to reach out to at the time of, maybe trying to hire on talent or something like that. I think that's probably the next step in the whole thing. But I've been really happy in this very nice middle ground. It's like the sweet spot of, I really only have to focus on myself. I'm not like paying employees, but I'm taking on big projects. So it's like there's no liability. It's kind of like the sweet spot. Again, there will be a point where I'm like, maybe I get tired of just doing it for me, or just being able to do what one person is capable of doing. And then I'll want to move on to stuff like that and take on more of like a creative direction role, manage projects that have animation, stuff like that. That's probably long term.
Yeah, just sounds logic in your evolutions, and like
sure.
There's something like as well, like I like to do as well. Imagine you are like 50 years old and you give a feedback to yourself, like advice from the Patrick today. What do you think he would recommend you?
So what would my 50-year-old self recommend to me today?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ooh, probably. That's a good one. He'd probably say something like, on these days where all I'm doing is making the daily render and I'm kind of like chilling, like probably like do more. Like there's days, even though I have, it seems like I'm always grinding because I'm doing like the reels, all this stuff, but a typical work day is, not more than, including the stream and the reel, probably like 4 hours or something like that. So it's not crazy. So maybe my future self would be like, dude, you could have been using those like extra hours so I can just like absolutely grinding or something like that. But I do think I'm a big proponent of having a good like work to life balance. Some people disagree with that, some people agree, but I will never take on as much work to where like I don't have a life anymore. I think that's super key in staying fresh and not feeling like super bombarded with too much work. And that's another thing. I feel like at this point, maybe I have the luxury to be able to do that, and not everybody has that luxury to kind of just like chill out. But it's played a huge role in having me be able to be like inspired all the time and like willing to do all these streams all the time and take on opportunities like this,
Okay, I see. That's cool, man. And let's try the opposite now. Like, if like which kind of advice would you give to the young Patrick, maybe the 18 years old or 20 years old Patrick? Like, there's anything to speed up the process, or maybe slowing down on a few things?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I used my time pretty wisely in like college. I was always like doing music video shoots. I was always in a position, whether it was even high school, I was doing music video shoots there. So I came to SCAD, the college I went to, with kind of an edge when everyone was picking up a film camera for the first time. I had already been shooting for like 4 years almost. And so by the time I graduated, you know, I was working in the industry and wasn't starting from the ground up. So I feel like I did okay there. I probably would have said, pick up 3D like your freshman year before. You know, I picked up 3D like my sophomore year, but maybe I wish I would have dived into 3D even sooner, and then just been that much more ahead of everything, and maybe gone to school. Actually, no, I'm glad I went to school for film, because that gave me the edge of like camera settings, you know, composition, lighting, all that stuff. So by the time I entered the 3D realm, it's like I knew like half of it, you know.
Perfect, man. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answer. And I don't know, like as the last question, do you have like any people you may recommend for the next interview, like a friend of you, or like people inspire you who you would like to see on MDC channel or as an interview?
I'm trying to think. That's a tough one. Like a 3D artist, or?
Yeah, 3D artist, yeah.
3D artist. I think here. Maybe I think Made by Studio JQ would be probably a good one. He's got a lot of cool NFT stories, and he's a cinema and stuff. So him, the Dizzy Viper is always super clutch with the car renders and stuff. Okay. I feel like I have a few in my head. I can probably get back to you or like hit you up after about.
No, it's okay. I mean, just
in my head right now.
Yeah, just 1, 2 is okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, man. Yeah. It was a really interesting interview. Like, it was really nice talking to you. I really like the way you're thinking. It's so interesting to have a bit like your process and what's beyond Patrick 4D. Like all of the behind the scenes is really interesting. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man. Also, shout out. See this right here. Shout out to my grandma. My grandma sent me this for Christmas. This is hilarious. It's literally, she put Patrick_4D on like a little like pullover thing. So shout out to the grandma.
Right?
Yeah.
Is your name on it? Oh, so cool. So she follow you on Instagram. So
yeah, I made her. She asked me a while back. I made her an Instagram account so she can like keep up to date with some stuff. So yeah, always appreciative. I don't just wear like random merch with my name, but she did. She made this. Shout out.
Is it a future brand? Is it a future collab with your grandmother about Patrick 4D?
I might have to. Might have to. Future NFT.
Awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Thanks. Bye-bye.